Okay. Good morning, everyone. Did you have a nice sleep last night? Good, because we're going to have like 20 plus presentations today, so you better not sleep today in this auditorium. So good to hear that. Thank you, and welcome back to this Green Auditorium today. So yesterday we had exciting sessions. I think we had over like 200 or 250 participants over here. Today is a little lighter, but I think the excitement did not go away. So we are still here, and it's all webcast. So whatever you say will be watched by a lot of different people going forward for next 1 year, by the way. So first speaker that I'm going to introduce is Dr. Chris Greer, who is the Director of Cyber Physical Systems and Smart Grid Program Office. And he is going to talk about, I'm just bringing it up 1 second. Here we go. And please welcome Dr. Chris Greer.
Okay, can you hear me okay out there in the audience? Very good. All right, so welcome to day 2 of Tech Jam. I had as Saku has already said, a terrific day yesterday with a huge number of exciting project summaries. Going to have that again today, so welcome back for a pretty exciting session. I'm a senior executive for cyber physical systems here at NIST. And so my job is to dream up, impossible things like the Global City Teams Challenge, and then unleash the awesome power of Soku-ri on that. So all of you have had a chance to work with Soku and the amazing energy that he brings to this project. So a big round of applause for all of the effort that Soku is putting in. And a big round of applause for all of you who all of you really rock, and you're changing the world with your project. So applause for yourself. Just amazing. I'm only going to make a few comments, and then we're going to move on to the rest of the program. And really what I want to do is give you a sense of why NIST is really interested in this and what we're trying to accomplish, what we want to bring to this effort as part of the process. And give you a few basic axioms that we think we have to think about, and we hope you'll think about too as you do your project. So the standard slides. NIST is a component of the Department of Commerce, and so we're a research organization, often called the National Lab for Industry. And so our job is to use measurement science and technology to promote innovation, economic competitiveness, and through that process to improve the overall quality of life. So to do that, we have to work directly with academia, with industry, with our other government partners. This is inherently a collaborative mission. So we always work through consensus modes for that purpose. These are some of the basic stats and facts with respect to NIST. We have about 3,000 people on this campus, other than the guest researchers and such. And about 85% of those folks are engineers or scientists, graduate students, postdocs. They're doing research here to contribute to the kinds of measurement science that we hope will support the work that all of you are doing in your daily lives. And this last bullet is easily the one we're most proud of. The last 20 years, 5 Nobel Prizes for NIST researchers. So very high quality research program. But we're really a research operation, not a policy or regulatory organization. Not that that's a bad thing. Policy and regulation is just fine, but it's not part of our mission. So I wanted to talk about 3 basic axioms. And the first of them is this business of compositionality. And compositionality is a term that's used in linguistics and semantics and in some mathematics as well. And it's this general idea that the function or the meaning of a system, like a collection of words, arises from the meaning of the components and the interactions between those components. And so in linguistics, the canonical example are the words sled and dog. So sled dog, dog sled. You get a different meaning with the composition. And so that principle of compositionality in semantics and linguistics means that a relatively small vocabulary and a list of grammatical rules can be used to create almost an infinite number of concepts and ideas. So we need to think about that in the context of smart cities and cyber-physical systems. So in this slide, the vertical axis represents scale or complexity. Moves from a discrete cyber-physical system at the bottom to very large and complex meta-systems of systems. And so in the communications realm, we can walk up this scale ladder and start with a smartphone at the bottom on that scale. All of us probably have one with us. It's a bona fide cyber-physical system. It has hardware, software, networking capabilities, and the various physical engineered characteristics of that phone. But it doesn't operate alone. It's able to interact with the cell tower as a way of connecting. And there are a series of protocols, actually very many protocols, that govern the interaction between that cell phone and the cell tower that enable that capability. And managing those protocols and interactions is really crucial to creating the meaning of a cell, right, for a cell phone system. And then through backhaul line and connection to the core networks, the ability to create global communication systems by creating networks of networks. And that network of network creation involves protocols that operate at the edge of the network, right, and the exchanges between networks. That's where that interaction piece has. So the property of the internet is a function of the properties of the individual networks and the protocols that connect them. And the behavior of the internet emerges from the collection of those things. Same can be done in the energy sector. This is the smart meter, right? A series of protocols in which that operates. Not the same protocols as your cell phone uses, right? But it does use a set of protocols to interact with a smart substation in a distribution grid, and then through interconnects that are tightly controlled, and through transmission lines, you get a continental scale grid whose behavior is pretty critical, right, to our national interests. Same thing applies in transportation. An electric bus, a pretty interesting and complex cyber-physical system in and of its own. And as this bus is driving around, it may interact with a smart intersection, right, as it tries to make its way through the route. And there will need to be a series of protocols and so on for that bus to interact effectively there. And the Department of Transportation, as you heard yesterday, is working on exactly this sort of concept. But those then can be connected together into a regional transportation grid. So this is a way of thinking about compositionality, but it's in a fairly conventional way, right? It has this feeling of stovepipes and silos, right? And in the real world, the world that you live in, doesn't work quite that way. So the city of Santa Clara, for example, in working with its local municipal utility, Silicon Valley Power, decided that they could use the capabilities of a smart meter to create a citywide Wi-Fi access network, right, a platform. And so this composition works this way, right, in some sense, able to connect to a global communication grid through a smart meter. So the fact that it's a smart meter is sort of a sideline in this respect. It happens to be a Wi-Fi connection point as well. And so compositionality doesn't have to be vertical. we can think about buses as well. There are a number of cities that are working on deploying electric buses, fleets of electric buses. And you have to think about how to charge those buses and where you're going to do that. So distributed charging stations are part of the idea. But that charging station is not just a charging station, it's also a giant battery, right? So if the power goes out in a local microgrid and you have 100 buses at this charging station, the battery power that you have there is substantial. And so by reversing the flow into the microgrid, in the case of a power outage, you can create substantial resilience in the city to power outage because of the battery capability that you have here. So thinking about buses as energy sources is a different way of thinking about them as a module. Similarly, a bus is not necessarily just a transportation device. It moves all over the city in a predictable, scheduled route. And so not just a bus, it's an environmental sensor as well. And so monitoring air quality, monitoring traffic movement, a mobile sensor for a wide variety of sources. So the point that I'm trying to make here is that by thinking more about what the capabilities are than what the form factor and the function is, will allow us to take much more platform-enabled approach to creating multifunctional capabilities in the various systems that we're deploying in our smart city efforts. Right? And so at the top of this stack, the sorts of things that you're working on. Smart city deployment is inherently integrative, right? If you want to be a smart city that's resilient to natural disasters, you need to be able to manage coordinately in a very effective way your transportation, your communications, your emergency response, your health care, the water supply, the food chain, that whole range of things. So smart city goals are social, not technical, and that makes them, with respect to the technology, inherently integrative. And so interoperability across these domains is a critical feature of a smart city effort. And when you get down to it, in order to create these kinds of multi-directional, horizontal, and vertical interactions, what we need is some really strong agreement on the basic standards and metrics for interoperability across all of these systems. And that's what NIST is very much interested in. So compositionality is one of the axioms that we want to keep in mind. The second is the business of modularity. And we certainly saw in the presentations yesterday, and we'll see in them today, that cities are not the same, right? There's a difference between what Ammon, Idaho really will do in terms of its implementation and what New York City will do as well. And not just in scale, but in culture, social needs, some of the political goals, the legal constraints, the policy environments. All of those things come into play in a real smart city deployment. So cities are not the same. Nonetheless, there are a set of really basic capabilities in any cyber-physical system, whether it's a smart transportation system or what have you, a basic set of sensors and actuators, control systems, networks, applications, and so on. By creating interoperability across these capabilities, we enable cities to solve their problems, to put together smart city solutions that fit their need, right? We're using sort of the same basic technologies, assembling them in different ways through the use of standards for interoperability. But we also need to provide the ability to measure performance in different ways, right? So the needs of a city in the Southwest desert for water management are different from the needs and policies for water management in a city in southern Florida, and so on, as all of you are aware. So the way you want to measure performance and measure the capabilities of these various systems, not necessarily the same, but you want to be able to measure them in ways that are meaningful, to you and your city. And so we also have to provide performance metrics that can be applied across many different compositions of smart city systems. And that's a standards-based process as well. All right, and then finally, interoperability. And many of you, like us, are working in this complex environment of organizations that are working on standards for interoperability in various contexts. And so in our regular activities, we're interacting with virtually all of these organizations on their various guidelines, best practices, and formal standards efforts. And it's really critical if we're going to be able to create the kind of modularity and composability that I think is really essential to unlocking the real power of cyber-physical systems for smart cities. We need to be able to cooperate across this entire environment of standards. And these are not just national bodies, these are international bodies in many, many cases. And that reflects the fact that smart cities is not a local goal, it's in many cases a global goal. And so cooperation internationally across this environment is an important part of what we're trying to do. So the basic message is, in order to really unlock the power of cyber-physical systems for smart cities, we really need to cooperate and work together. And the sorts of projects that you're doing and the Global City Teams Challenge is organized around exactly that goal. All right? So with that, let me finish and turn it back to Sok-Woo. Thank you, Sok-Woo.
Thank you, Chris, for a very inspiring and a very detailed the description of the what NIST is doing on CPS research. Now, next speaker is, let me bring up the slides. 1 second, yes. So, White House Office of Science and Technology Policy has been extremely supportive of this smart city and CPS and IoT efforts for last, as far as I joined the government, which is a year and a half ago, probably even before that. So next speaker, we're going to hear from Dr. Richard Voiles, who is Assistant Director of Robotics and Cyber Physical Systems from White House Office of Science and Technology Policy. Please welcome Dr. Voiles.
All right, thank you, Sok-Woo. I am first going to, there we go, double down on what Chris said about Sok-Woo's support and enthusiasm, as we all know it. Because when I came into Office of Science and Technology Policy, Sok-Woo was there initially as a Presidential Innovation Fellow and was driving the Smart America Challenge, which grew into the forerunner of this Global Cities. And so as we all know, it's been really appreciative to have Sok-Woo's effort here. Yeah. Now, contrary to what Chris said, I do care about policy, right? And not that you don't care, but yeah, that is my policy because we have no research labs, right? We have actually no money. And so all we do all we do, right, is advocate through people like Chris and Sok-Woo to try to help them as best we can to get the money that they need, get the money that all the programs need, as you've heard, throughout these 2 days. And we have an advantage with us. It's how we make our living comes from a quote actually by President Obama. And we do have the good fortune that President Obama really takes science and technology as a presidential priority. And that's where one of these quotes is taken from. And it really is important, right? It's how we make our living. And I'm going to talk about that a lot here because you heard from Dan Correa yesterday, who's also at the Office of Science and Technology Policy. I'm not going to talk too much about what we do. Again, we advocate for policy, and we advocate, that means basically budget, regulations, and a little bit of cheerleading, right, that we do to try to rally our collection of agencies, right, to help them as best we can and to provide the support that they need, right, to move through the regulatory hurdles that sometimes get put in front of our way from a technological standpoint, right? So we kind of provide an interface between the legislative side and the again, the executive side, the operational side. You know, again, we have no budget, we have no laboratories within the Office of Science and Technology Policy, and again, that's why we have, as President Obama said, you know, we have to do this with simply a pen and a phone. And the nice thing is that when we do call, when the agencies do get a call from the White House, at least they'll take the call. They won't always necessarily be happy to talk to us in terms of what we have to say, but at least we get an answer. And again, we have, you know, I think our president has given great emphasis on robotics, CPS, and Internet of Things kind of technologies. And from the industrial perspective, right, from the academic perspective, and right down to, you know, the citizenry itself. This is the White House Science Fair, an image from the White House Science Fair. And again, because, you know, and this really helps, right, when we have a president, an executive officer who's really makes science and technology an important part of his administration. And, you know, you've heard, and of course know, you're living this on a daily basis, the projects you're creating, you know where the important things are, right? And there are these broad areas that we have this enormous potential to drive, and to drive not only new technology, which is what a lot of us as scientists like to think about, but what we've been pushing and through Sok-Woo and Jeff last year, right, was this charge with the forerunner to global cities was, you know, we need to look at what are the applications, what are the impacts of technology, not the technologies themselves, right? Because from a policy standpoint, right, I can't really sell technologies per se, right? We're interested in, from a governmental standpoint, what's the impact on our citizens? What's the impact on things like healthcare? Impact on transportation, energy, the environment, all these things. And that's what, of course, we rely on this fantastic group of technologists and scientists and engineers working on these projects, right, to show examples, right, use cases of what we can do so that we can turn these into policy in the form of legislation for budgets and legislation for other things like, you know, one thing we're working a lot on is, for example, integrating, from a transportation standpoint, unmanned systems into both the national airspace and, in fact, our ground-based transportation network. And those are the things that we can take use cases like these projects that you're producing and use them to help direct policy, to help provide the financial impetus, the reasons. When we talk about, you know, Internet of Things technologies, there are estimates as much as $17 trillion in impact over the next, through 2025. This has a huge impact in things like how you integrate unmanned systems into the national airspace. Why would we want to do that? Because they create huge potential risks to safety. Because that's what we have to do this in a safe manner, right? Well, it comes down to, because of the the impact on improved healthcare through systems that can perhaps deliver medicines and test results to remote areas because of, Amazon and Google want to do delivery, and in fact that has an impact on the environment by reducing fuel costs and those sorts of things. Again, a lot of things in healthcare. These are the things that we use, right, as tools to help make policy, not only decisions, but arguments about particular aspects of policy. And one thing I'm going to focus on a little bit is down here in the manufacturing and agriculture, and I'm going to skip over, but I'll talk about that a little bit later. What do we actually do, okay? And this is an example of a project that has grown out of, originally, the Smart America Challenge. We use this example of a project in intelligent emergency response, which is important, of course, to smart cities, to this global network, and took examples from this project and related projects, and then expanded some of the research and development efforts in things like the DARPA Robotics Challenge, which is a humanitarian disaster response program, and other aspects, right, to get more investment. And we were able to actually do this really in real time. Last year, while this project and others like it were ongoing, we were able to redirect more money into some of the research programs within different agencies, within the federal government. In fact, in the context of global cities, actually internationalized it, got additional investment from Japan, Korea, and the European Union to help in a collaborative way through a combined humanitarian disaster challenge, right, competition, right, do more R&D in networks of systems and for disaster response. Aribo is another project. Actually has its roots before Smart America Challenge, but has evolved through Smart America and through the global cities. And again, this is one a specific project that we've said, hey, this has enough impact on the federal government and the citizenry, right, to try to direct additional funding for this program specifically. And we'll see as we go through the FY16 budget process how successful we're going to be in that process. But we do see, for example, additional funding for this within at least the president's request for Aribo. So the stuff you're doing and the way you're coming together through this NIST program of global cities has measurable impact in some cases on some of the actual projects, but more importantly, on the community of projects, researchers, and funding, right, that comes back to make these things possible. So I really want to thank you and provide some impetus, right, that what you're doing really is having an impact and really is helpful to us in the policy space. I do want to point this out, because as NIST is focusing, what's in a name, as NIST, standards is one of their middle names, right? And of course, that's one thing from a policy standpoint that we really think is important, as Chris mentioned, it's about interoperability. And I really like the way that Chris showed those systems, and how they come together. And the fact that, as they branch over into other areas, this is why interoperability on a global scale, right, is really important. Now, that doesn't mean necessarily we have to have one universal standard for everything, right? That's going to be hard. And that's what we see here, right, is in just the naming, right, of different things, a lot of differences are emerging, right, in kind of homegrown and somewhat proprietary standards, which I actually see as a good thing, right, initially, because that's often what happened. If there were no interest in creating standards, right, that would probably mean there's no interest in the business case and in the commerce side. And in fact, what we're seeing is, yeah, lots of people jumping on board and trying to create their own proprietary standards for business reasons, right? Our interest, of course, we believe, as does NIST, as does hopefully most of you here, that there is business case advantage also for having interoperability and having some standards that emerge as, that help leverage the industry and the industrial cases, as well as providing business opportunity, right? Because that's what, that's ultimately, again, how things like cyber-physical systems, the Internet of Things, Smarter Planet, whatever you want to call it, impact, right, our citizens through the world over. And again, that's where the global nature comes in. And, there are some important things, right? Just what is the essence? It's not just about connecting sensors to the Internet, right? It's about these meta systems. Boy, meta, where we've got systems of systems, and now meta systems of systems. Okay. But yeah, that is the nature of the complexity we're dealing with, right? We're not just building, a robot, a weather station, whatever. It's about coupling. It's about coupling these things together, not just at the cyber realm, but also in the physical realm. That's what we call it, cyber-physical systems. It's about trust, right? How are we going to do this when there are potentially thousands of devices in each one of our homes? Every time you buy a house or move to a new apartment, you're going to have to authenticate 1,000 different devices in your house, It really, the implications for cybersecurity are enormous for the Internet of Things in that respect of we're going to have to go to a much more trust-based approach than authentication. And this concept of verifying and validating your systems, these really complex systems, when we're composing them, is still unsolved problems, right? And a lot of work that needs to be done. But I do want to point out some things about what are all our roles and responsibilities. And I'll explain at the end why. Much of this we know, right? That basically this all is about people. And we've created these systems, right, where we have the educational systems that globally we support. And what happens, and I'm color-coded this, that pink basically is people, green is money, blue is basically ideas and intellectual property, and yellow here is services. And people go through our educational systems throughout the world, right? And there are different levels of education right up through higher ed. Of course, putting in money to the system, putting in people, ideas, again, getting knowledge, experience back. As a result of that system, right, this loop, the reason for this is to increase our skills, right, and to produce for industry, right, that drives and provides all this stuff in terms of money back to our populace, and new ideas and services, of course, in form of products and other things. Government, of course, shows up here, right? We all know that we pay taxes, and the taxes come both from ourselves and from our industries. And hopefully government is providing back some good services in the forms of infrastructure, investment in our educational systems, and of course infrastructure as well to help enable things like the transportation, the healthcare, the agriculture systems, and so on. And then of course there's this interplay between industry and education in terms of ideas and IP. Industry ultimately is pulling people, right, from the general population who are enhanced by our educational systems. And there are some important areas here also that, notice the arc, right, from people over to industry involves also this IP, because ultimately innovation comes from us. Okay? The individuals, the entrepreneurs, both within big business and small business. But there's an important thing that why do I want to point this out? Interestingly, I think our industry, right, CPS and robotics in particular, there are some really interesting examples in the robotics part of CPS that we're seeing some big changes in the way that diagram is changing, and or at least been locally impacted. Because when we talk about a $17 trillion potential industry, everyone wants to get engaged, and we don't have, I don't believe we're producing enough of the people power, right? The STEM graduates at all levels of the STEM hierarchy to support the full demand of industry. And unfortunately, what we're seeing, which is actually a good thing, right, is the need for this expertise is so great. We're more and more seeing industry having to go directly to our educational systems and carving out entire labs are disappearing out of our, in particular, our higher ed systems, which again is good. It shows the importance, but it results in short-term depression of the STEM pipeline. And so there's a real important part of this, you know, that we need to make sure we're reinvesting in that part of the STEM pipeline, right? And a recent example, I'll give a recent example that was just announced this month, in fact, is a connection between Uber and Carnegie Mellon. And of course, one of our central, you know, one of the CPS projects that is really a kind of a capstone of one of the things NSF has been supporting in terms of research is self-driving cars. And this is exactly, of course, what Uber is interested in. And they've taken a whole lab out of Carnegie Mellon, right, and to create a advanced technology center. And the really neat thing is, for a startup, so essentially they're creating a startup with an enormous investment in about 50 people that's going to come out of CMU. But Uber recognized that if they do that, right, that in fact this is going to crimp the STEM pipeline that they need to draw from in the future. And so they've taken some of their startup money, if you will, some of their capital for investment, and they're actually investing it back into CMU to help rebuild that piece that generates the STEM people, you know, that generates the future employees that they're going to need to continue to hire. And I think this is really important. And why, right? We think, okay, that as you pointed out from that quote from President Obama, you know, innovation is how we make our living. It's not important to look at any one of these plots. The important thing here is they're all downward trends. And this is not just economic plots from the recession. All these plots go back 20 or 30 years, right? And they're all suggesting one thing, right? The entrepreneurship, the startups, the innovation that does drive not just American economy, but the global economy, but these are focused on American workers, are all kind of going down. And that's a bad thing. There's one that's going up, but that's actually the concentration of venture capital in one spot in the country, in Silicon Valley. So that's kind of a bad indicator also. And so we do need to redouble our efforts on keeping the innovative ideas alive, right? Both in big companies and small. And really put an effort on, again, the educational system that produces, we have to encourage, you know, kind of a return to where we were in terms of our innovation capabilities. And we are starting to see that with programs, for example, at the National Science Foundation, the Innovation Corps, which is growing to other agencies as well. Time-wise, I'm probably about done. I'm going over. So I'm going to skip over that a little bit. But manufacturing is an important part of this. That's not something that is been highly represented in the global cities or in in Smart America before it, partly because companies want to keep their proprietary information about how they manufacture to themselves. We need to build our manufacturing efforts, because one thing we're talking about is reshoring manufacturing jobs. Where are we going to get the STEM talent we need to install new lines, to design new lines, to operate new lines, right? This is, and there's a huge opportunity when we think global cities, right? It's much more than just the city itself, right? A city is an entire ecosystem, and cities need to eat, right? And that's where agriculture, which is often not located in the cities, is still part of that ecosystem. And in the United States, at least, right, a large part, and this is years, a large part of our farm labor is provided by, in many cases, undocumented immigrants or illegal immigrants. That's the, basically, citizens are in the green, legal immigration is represented in the red, and undocumented workers in the blue. And we're facing a crisis, potential crisis, that CPS technologies can address. And that is the immigration policies that President Obama has put forward. We have a previous example, right, in 1986, where President Reagan did basically an amnesty program for immigration. And one thing that happened with these programs is it tends to allow the undocumented workers to move higher up into the chain, right? So basically, if you look at labor, this is kind of higher value labor chain along the top graph. This is basically those same categories, but this is what an undocumented worker basically did, what job they had upon arrival in the country versus after naturalization. And what we're seeing is a shift basically that way toward higher skills, because often they're undocumented, they couldn't get the job they actually had skills appropriate for. And if you look at all of these, down the diagonal is where the bulk stay, okay? So in other words, professionals tend to stay as professionals to a large degree. There's a lot of movement. Sales tends to stay at sales. There's one exception to this curve, or this trend, I should say. And that happens, I guess there are technically two exceptions, but along the diagonal, farming is not, they don't tend to stay in farming. And so this is, again, a profound opportunity for CPS, right, in automating and leveraging technology to do farming tasks. They tend to move out upon achieving legal status, and because in general, and the focus of this is on Hispanic families, because they make up the bulk of the undocumented workers, we see a large number of, once Hispanic families go from an undocumented to a documented status, often one of the workers comes out of the workforce, okay, which also exacerbates this problem with agriculture. And again, it really is somewhat magnified. And again, this is an opportunity for CPS. This is an opportunity for this community to think about that piece, right, to contribute to that piece of cities. And we've been looking at things like precision farming, vertical farming as well, moving agriculture into the cities rather than large traditional approaches to large farms. How can we do things with hydroponics, with intense lighting, and we get these huge advantages of basically going into inner city farming, where you eliminate the transportation costs, you eliminate the potential pollution associated with that, and at the same time, so as a result, it's a focus on high value crops rather than the traditional field crops, which are just bulk materials. But again, this is something where CPS is really going to make things like this possible, and the attendant environmental, transportation, congestion issues that it can help solve, right, by doing things like this. And so I think I will leave it there, because again, what I've been talking about is this challenge to education and how we can produce as a system in and of itself, with industry, with taxpayers, with the educational universities and K through 12, to meet this challenge that CPS is going to demand to reach that market potential. All right? So thank you very much.
All right, as Richard pointed out, a lot of projects that he showed as example, Aribo and SIRS and so on, are continuing to make impacts in Global City Teams Challenge too. So next is a video presentation from European Commission. Thibaut Kleiner, who is leading the networking technology division in European Commission. He sent a video message that he wanted to be here, but because of schedule conflicts, he couldn't. So instead, he sent this message, which we're going to talk about a lot of things about what European unions are doing.
Good morning. My name is Thibaut Kleiner from the European Commission.
Just one second, let me just make it full screen. Okay, there you go.
Mission. For those of you who don't know the European Commission, we are the executive of the European Union. So we represent 500 million inhabitants and are developing a series of policies, including for research and innovation. So it's my pleasure, my privilege to be with you through this video message today, and to tell you a bit more about Internet of Things, smart cities and communities, which is one of our activities in DG Connect, where I'm the head of unit for network technologies. For those of you who are not familiar with Internet of Things, it's good maybe to start with a short example. For instance, in a home, you can think about IoT, Internet of Things, have a system that connects more or less everything in your home, from your pool to your heating system, to your car, to your entertainment systems, if you want. So really, it's a new era of connectivity, and something where we think there could be nice and very positive opportunities for growth development in Europe and elsewhere. So we have even a definition from the ITU on the Internet of Things. And the idea is really that it is about not only connectivity, but it's also about a network infrastructure. It's about sensors, actuators, and overall an information network. We think that the IoT offers tremendous opportunities globally, in the US, in Europe, and we have actually a number of studies that show this. For instance, very recently, Gartner, the consultant famous in the ICT sector, announced that IoT was at the top of the hype curve, showing that the prospects for growth are very, very important. McKinsey itself forecasts in 2025 a market value of something between 2.5 trillion euros and 6 trillion euros. That's about $7 trillion. So really huge opportunities. And that's why also in the EU, we are trying to promote the Internet of Things as an opportunity to generate growth in the EU. And there again, we think that the prospects are very, very interesting. So what can a body like the European Union do to support the Internet of Things? And what can we do together with international partners? First of all, we believe that the IoT is somehow the next digital revolution. It's about everything getting connected. It's also about a new ecosystem that combines connectivity with also cloud computing, big data, a new area of services and products. And you can even think about robotics in that context. What we believe is that we are approaching a tipping moment where IoT becomes more and more pervasive, and where together the whole economy, the whole society becomes hyper-connected. And we think it's not just a hype, it's not just a very vague prospect, because you see around us that new products are being put on the market, and industry is really rising to the challenge. We also believe in the EU that we have a lot of ingredients to lead this process, and that we should very much avoid fragmentation, because IoT requires every player to play their role and to connect across silos, across industries, across continents. So our vision is about building this sophisticated ecosystem combining vendors, suppliers, service providers, and enterprise users. So really it's about building a whole ecosystem and trying to derive from this a lot of value, and that includes SMEs, that includes also cities and citizens. So the way we are approaching the Internet of Things and smart cities overall is about addressing some key challenges. The first one, of course, has to do with technology. There are still important remaining challenges for the IoT, in particular as regards security, privacy, but also the reliability of data and sensors at large scale. Not to forget semantic interoperability, to make sure that all these connected objects can relate to one another. Another important risk and challenge we have identified has to do with fragmentation. We need to make sure that industries cooperate across their own areas, that silos are broken, so that we develop common standards between countries, between industries, between regions. At the same time, I think that technology is not enough. You also need to make sure that these solutions that we are putting forward in our smart cities, in our connected economy, will be accepted by users, that they will see the value of having these new objects, these new connected services. And that's not always obvious. You need to have the right user-friendly interface. You need to make sure that privacy is secured. And that's something, as you may know, that in Europe is very important, this privacy aspect. We need also now to move into deployment and to work on international standards. And that's where smart cities is a very interesting area, because we believe that overall, if you look at the globe, if you look at what is happening in Europe, in Asia, in America, smart cities is one area where we can do work together, where we can develop these solutions, showcase the nice results we have from these technologies. And we have a broad strategy on smart cities at the EU level. A series of communications and papers were published in that respect. The focus has been on the famous 20-20-20 targets. So for those of you who don't know what it means, it's something used very often in the EU to talk about energy efficiency and low carbon development. So we have these three targets to reduce consumption and to make sure that we use renewables as energy sources. And smart cities have a big role to play in that context. So we developed a Smart Cities European Innovation Partnership, and this means actually mobilizing a series of partners, a series of stakeholders to reach these targets and to work together to make cities smarter and to develop, especially for energy and for transport, these new technologies. So this EIP has been launched already some years ago, and now we are really in the implementation phase. We are really rolling out the programs. We are making sure that cities connect, and that's why we launched some time ago this invitation for commitments, inviting cities to tell us what they are ready to do in terms of new projects, in terms of putting together teams that could collaborate to implement these technologies. And guess what? We got now something like 3,000 partners from 31 countries, including some partners from the USA, and we have 6 action clusters. So really a lot is happening in Europe in that area, and we would very much welcome global joining up. I should then mention our plans for the future. We have our new work program. We work usually in the EU with 2 years work program. And in 2016-17, we will have a major initiative on the Internet of Things. We call it a focus area because we want to bridge between many sectors and bridge also with the smart cities initiatives we already launched. So the idea is really to make sure that the technology, the use cases, and the societal challenges are combined so that the right technology is developed for innovative usages. And this, of course, should combine the development of the IoT ecosystems. That's where we see a great potential. One idea has to do with piloting and testing. Just like we have lighthouse projects for cities, we want to have more of these in a number of areas so that we overcome the fragmentation across silos and so that we also promote working together across the value chain. That means using the technology, but that means also validating them and having feedback from users in real-life market conditions. So that's something where, again, we hope we can join forces with other regions of the world and together benefit from the experimentation. For these pilots, we have a number of areas. Smart cities will be one of them in terms of reference cities for citizen-centered services. We believe that we need there again to start from the citizen to build the technology. But it will cover other areas from smart home, smart living environment, if you want, to smart farming, to healthcare and wearables, to transport and infrastructure. So quite a wide area of pilots are anticipated for this period. Not to forget that we also have activities in the area of the industrial internet. So we have great ideas for this period, next year, 2016, and we would like to make sure that the IoT is really growing in Europe and globally. And that's where we have also the next stage of the Smart Cities Lighthouse projects. Still this year we have a call ongoing. You may have heard about these Lighthouse projects. It's about consortia of cities and industry. Each time the design is that you have 2-3 cities involved, and you have 2-3 following cities that try to replicate the technology development. And this benefits from support in terms of funding from the EU. We have already some projects that are about to be awarded, and we have a new call in 2015, and we'll have more of them next year as well. Importantly, you should know that cities from other regions, including from the USA, are welcome to join these projects, these lighthouse projects, and that it's about essentially contributing to this project as following city or as leading city, even though you still need to have at least 3 European cities in 3 member states. In addition to all this program of funding for innovation, for smart cities, for other IoT pilots, we try to combine these efforts with an important standardization strategy. That's where, again, we are very, very much in contact with NIST, and we hope that this partnership can strive in the future. So the EC standardization strategy is about making sure that we support the emergence of the IoT in terms of various standards that are interoperable. And there we have a key partner, which is ETSI, the European Telecom Standardization Institute, that has developed a big hub for IoT. And we hope that we can reach out to other regions in that context. That's what I wanted to tell you this morning. The big message is that in Europe, we believe that the Internet of Things will be a revolution. We want to be part of it. We think that smart cities is probably one of the most advanced cases today. So feel free to reach out, to get in touch with us, and to join our pilots. Thank you for your attention, and best wishes for the rest of the conference. Thank you.
He may be watching this by now. So
Good morning.
it was good that we...
My name is Thibaut Kleiner from the European Commission.
Sorry
For those of
about
you who
that.
don't
Oh, I didn't know why it's repeating. So Thibaut in this presentation made two very important points. One is the user adoption and deployment is as important as the technology itself. Secondly, also he made a good point that international collaboration in IoT is extremely important because IoT by definition is about connectivity. And it's not just local connectivity. It has to be able to connect everything in the world, probably even if at some point it's Mars and Moon and everywhere that we can go. So along that line, next speaker is Bram, the Reinders, who has been leading the efforts in the smart city efforts in Amsterdam. And he flew all across the planet to give this talk. So please welcome Mr. Reinders. Full screen? Yeah. Full screen. Go.
Well, good morning, and thank you for having me. You saw just a video of Mr. Thibauti, and I think what we are doing in Amsterdam is exactly that. We work with him, and we work with the commissioners in the energy, transport, and ICT arena to set up smart city concepts. And we are doing that already since 2009. And he also mentioned a few preconditions. He mentioned privacy. And my company, Alliander, a grid company in the Netherlands who operates the grid in Amsterdam, is the first company in the world to have a privacy certificate. So everything that we are doing falls exactly within the new legislation of the European Commission. I think this is necessary to get a license to operate. On cyber security, we did set up the European Network for Cybersecurity, which has now, I think, 20 scientists, working with us in the energy field on cyber, because we need to make sure that our electrical infrastructure are cyber safe. And there, we work very close together with Japan and also with North America. Having said all of that, I prepared a little bit longer presentation, but I will skip some slides just to give you a flavor on how we started with Amsterdam, give you a flavor of some of the examples, and the 3 urban living labs, because that's a concept that we have in Amsterdam, and that works, we think, very well. And then some examples on international collaboration, because that is, the reason why I am here also, trying to set up, international collaboration, because my CEO is at the high-level group of the European Commission on Smart Cities and the Internet of Things. So we, have direct access also to the policymakers. So maybe we can help drive that international collaboration. That's what we try to do. And last but not least, yes, and you will see that in my presentation, it is driven by technology, but it's also driven by the people of Amsterdam, the citizens of Amsterdam, bottom-up approaches, and most of the projects are just that, bottom-up approaches. This is Amsterdam. Amsterdam has 80,000 citizens in the city, and 2 million in the metropolitan area. Amsterdam is below sea level. It is protected by the famous Dutch dikes and the canals, and you see the structure of the canals in this slide. And so We have, next to energy and smart cities, also a very interesting water competence built up in the last centuries, because we have to, otherwise we drown. So on the Amsterdam Smart City, it started in 2009 with Liander, the grid operator of Amsterdam, with KPN, a telecom operator, with Amsterdam, the city of Amsterdam, and we did set up the Amsterdam Economic Board. That is where it all started. There was nothing at that time, and now, 6 years later, we have 65 projects running in Amsterdam, 25 already finished of these projects. Some of these projects failed miserably, but we learned a lot from it, and we want to share also, what went wrong, because it is, for us also a piece of pioneering. So it's not all, good that we can, show. But there's also a lot of good initiatives and perfect next step. But I just want to make sure you mentioned that not always everything is perfect and goes the way that you think at the very beginning. And what is very difficult and what we learned many lessons in is how to collaborate. Because we have so many organizations with their own goals. We have so many people with their own goals. It is sometimes difficult to set up, the right collaboration within the city, within the institutes, within the city, but also when you do that nationally, and even more when you do that in Europe, and even more challenging when you do that, with other countries, outside of Europe. So I think there are a few conditions to really start smart city initiatives. And first is your telecom, and that was already mentioned. Telecommunications is a prerequisite. You need to be able, the Internet of Things is all about telecommunications between people, but also between machines. Smart grids, I will give you some examples also on smart grids, but also a big open data program with everybody who is there within my company, Alliander. Very unusual that we open our data sets to the people that make apps on it. And then we also in 2009 already did set up a startup accelerator and incubator, because we out of this comes a lot of innovation and new companies, and they need to be supported and also funded. And just this year, I think a few months ago, we have a new bigger initiative, Startup Delta, in the Netherlands. And that is the next thing after 5-year pioneering with startups. You learn a lot, and now you know better on how to do that. And not just that, knowledge and knowledge sharing is of course very important. So we work with MIT in Boston, and we are setting up, or we are already did that a few years ago, the Amsterdam Institute of Advanced Metropolitan Solutions. So everything that we're doing, we're also teaching. The stuff that went well and the stuff that went not so well, because that is why you learn. So we have students, we have a master program, we have research, we have summer schools, and also we have some online courses, because we think getting the people involved is very important. And last but not least, I think smart cities can only flourish when you have smart citizens. And that, what we try to do also in Amsterdam, make sure at least that everybody speaks perfectly English. And I think that is reasonably, successful. Let me give you a few examples of projects out of this slide. Mobility. I just want to mention the joint ownership. We are pioneering with sharing cars. So next from technology and the Internet of Things, we also pioneer with social engineering. We think that is a part of the smart city as well. We had too many cars, we had too many air pollution in the city. We raised the price to park your car in 2009, and we came up with these car to go and we go car sharing initiatives, and I think we are pretty successful. We also in 2009 we had 0 charging points for electrical vehicles, and now we have more than 1,000. And we have in the Netherlands, as we speak currently today, already 40,000 electrical vehicles. We have the highest density of electrical vehicles in the world, full stop. And we, by 2020, the goal of my government is to have 200,000 electrical vehicles on the road in the Netherlands. So just an example, and of course this goes with a couple of projects, but just to give you an example on what we're doing on transportation. Energy, I can go to the regular stuff that was discussed already today and this morning, but I want to show or point to a different thing, and that is a heating district. We are building, we did build a business district, the Zuidas. You can compare that with La Défense in Paris, and we did something very interesting. We cooled that whole district by lake water, because Amsterdam is below sea level, we have plenty of water, and we heated it by an energy plant. So we are using very different technologies, and therefore we do not need the electricity for that. So that is another way of thinking, out of the box thinking, and we implemented that. Connectivity. I think what is interesting to mention is also our historic successes. That the first connection of the internet in Europe was made in Amsterdam 25 years ago. We have the fastest broadband of internet in Europe as we speak, with 4G and LTE, and 95% of everybody in Amsterdam has a very high speed internet access. And again, that is a precondition. Another project I want to mention is in an area that you see on the left side, which is a shopping area, a music hall, soccer stadium, Ajax football team, and a hospital. And what you see also is social housing. And we pioneered there, for instance, with smart lighting. And not just smart lighting, there's sensors in the light, so they only go on when people are passing. But there's also a color code that, if the stadium goes out and you want to manage the crowd, they can follow, the colors of the street lights. There is Wi-Fi. That whole area is completely, Wi-Fi enabled, and it is just for free. And we also measure there the air quality. So in this thing, in the lightning infrastructure, we do a lot more than just only lighting up the street. Healthcare, open data is maybe an initiative that I should mention. 300 data sets are already open, 1,200 to come. We want to be, very transparent. And let me give you an example. All the data for electrical vehicles is also open data. And through hackathons, people made apps to make reservations, for charging stations in Amsterdam. And of course, in 2009 when we started, we could never have dreamed that this was, an app that they wanted, to make. So that is what you see, when you give it, to the people and help them with their innovation. This is just another example, waste to energy. A waste-fired power plant with an electrical efficiency of 30%. This is 8% higher than the average in the world. And it produces sustainable energy because 48% of the waste consists of biomass, and that of course comes directly out of the city. So we do not need to transport it very long, which is another, help. And currently already, this plant, produces the electricity for 320,000 households. So just, next to Internet of Things technologies, very other, technologies, can help, making the city smart and reduce the carbon footprint. And at the heart and soul of everything are our 3 living labs. We need to connect parties. We need to build consortiums. We need to gain knowledge and spread it. We need to understand the energy consumption of our people. And we need to exchange knowledge on previous projects and also the lessons learned. So that is what we do in those 3 living labs. Here you see the areas of the 3 living labs in Amsterdam. The New West is about smart grids. So we focus also, our projects in those 3 areas because you cannot do everything for everybody. And then, you collect, everything and all the learning on different topics in those 3 areas. Smart grids in New West. In Southeast, and I will give one example, is the cooperation between businesses. So business collaboration is there very important. And in Eiburg, that is on the right-hand side, connectivity, all kinds of connectivity, but that is, the overriding concept. Everything but connectivity we are doing, right there, all kinds of projects. Citizen, I mentioned it. Citizen is one of the projects of Horizon 2020. We get this 30 million euros project, partly funded by the European Commission, as also a showcase for Europe and for other cities. Let's see. This is maybe an interesting project as well. I already mentioned the area where we have shops, a stadium, music hall, hospital, residentials. But what you see here is we also have a lot of data centers in Amsterdam, and they produce a lot of heat. So what we do is, we use that heat for heating our hospital, our cancer hospital. And then, we on the rooftop of the hospital, we already have the business case for large, PV. And we have then also, balance the energy between those, companies. And then, we can also, work with the soccer stadium because they need a lot of energy at specific, points in time. Those businesses, and that is what I just mentioned, this collaboration we are setting up as well. And this is, all these, executives and CEOs of these, companies are coming together and talk about it and green, and this is very important to them. And when people, Amsterdam gets 80 delegations every year to find out exactly what we're doing, and this is also, of course, one of the topics also that many other cities are interested in. How do you do that then? How do you make everybody work, and can we do that also in our city? Last but not least, I think citizens, I already mentioned, we put the citizens in the driver's seat. They come up with all kinds of ideas. We need to make sure that they gain knowledge, that they have the green mindset, and we are organizing all kinds of get-togethers at the evenings. And very often, it starts out difficult, but now 5-6 years in it, everybody is enthusiastic and is joining, and that is, now you drive it from the bottom up. Now you drive these initiatives from the citizens of Amsterdam, and that helps a lot. So we think social innovation, and also in areas, social housing areas, is we see phenomenal results when you work with people. Collaboration. I just want to mention one other project, Transform, where Amsterdam is working with a lot of other cities, or you can also put Vienna in the center and say they are working with a lot of other cities. So these are the schemes and the examples of projects that were just mentioned by the European Commission. Smart energy data. Let me see what I want to do next. I think with these examples on how Amsterdam is doing it, I want to finish my presentation, but not before I proudly say that there was a technology competition in San Francisco a few weeks ago called the Crunchies, and a team in Eindhoven did win it with a solar car, a family solar car, and that exactly tells what we want to do. We want to bring it to the people, to the family. So this is kind of what we see, the Oscar of technologies, and we did win it with the family solar car. Thank you very much for your attention.
So a lot of people say Amsterdam is one of the most advanced smart cities in the world, and you heard why it has that reputation. Now, next speaker is Ms. Noah Pereg, who is head of media from city of Tel Aviv.
Hi everybody, I'm very excited to be here, so thank you for inviting me. Okay, that's not the beginning of the presentation. So how many of you ever visited Tel Aviv? I'm curious. Oh, okay, so some of you. So for those of you who didn't get a chance to visit our beautiful city, I would like to start with a short clip showing you what Tel Aviv is all about. Tel Aviv, non-stop city. It's on. So Tel Aviv inspires to be one of the top world's leading global city, alongside with New York, Tokyo, London, and we're doing a lot of things to be a global city, to be a smart city. We are already the financial center of Israel, We aspire to be an influence city in the global arena. So I want to tell you a little bit about how it all started. A little bit more than 100 years ago, 66 families stood on the sandy area north to Jaffa and decided to establish a Hebrew city. They had a vision to establish a Hebrew city that will be the New York on the land of Israel. Some may say they were very optimistic. And today, 100 years later, they can say they were prophets because they were the first startup families who made our city what it is today. What you see here, it's the same place, the sandy place 100 years ago had only dunes. Now we have a great city. This is our main boulevard in Rothschild Street. So the first thing a city should do before becoming a smart city is understanding its DNA. Relying on its local assets and use them as a platform to create a smart city and a global city. So Tel Aviv has a lot of great assets. We have old assets alongside new assets. One of our great assets is the most ancient port city in the world, Jaffa Port. It's a very beautiful area. We also have the biggest collection of Bauhaus architecture in Tel Aviv. We have more than 4,000 buildings built in Bauhaus style, what made UNESCO declares as a World Heritage Site just a few years ago. But the most important asset Tel Aviv has today is its young residents. One of every 3 residents living in Tel Aviv today is between the ages of 18 to 35. And the amazing thing that they're not coming to Tel Aviv just to study. They come to live, they come to do business, they come to create. They are young, they are wild, they are free, they love partying, and they are making the city what it is. So we are using these great people, this young population, to advance the city. Tel Aviv also has a great beach, 14 kilometers of beach from the north to the south, which means that everywhere you live in Tel Aviv, you are 10 minutes walk from the beach, and the weather is usually great. It's not freezing like here, so I'm dressed in Tel Aviv weather. So it's another great asset we use. So we know we have all these great things, but we're not the only ones. The last few years, Tel Aviv won a lot of great titles from international platforms, such as the New York Times, who declared Tel Aviv the Mediterranean capital of cool. But we also had other titles like the best beach city, the best gay city, the best party city. We have a lot of great recognitions in international platforms we are very proud of. And we are doing everything we can to attract the creative class to live in Tel Aviv because we believe that they are the power that makes the city what it is, the people, the citizens, and we invest in them. So what you see here, by the way, is just a local bar called the Tedel. People are always taking their beers going outside because everything happens outside in Tel Aviv. It is just next to a synagogue, so that is the variety of Tel Aviv. A party and a synagogue in the same place, everything is okay. Professor Richard Florida from the Columbia University said that a city needs 3 things to attract the creative class to live in it. So he talked about the 3 T's: talent, which we have a lot in Tel Aviv. So all we have to do as a municipality is to give this talent a platform, these young people to create. This, for example, is the entrance to our city hall. So we gave them young artists just to do some graffiti on our stairs. So it leads upstairs to our offices. We also gave them the outside wall to do some changing temporary exhibitions, and we use a lot of our public buildings just as a platform for young artists. The second T Florida talked about is technology. So we invest a lot of money in technology in Tel Aviv. One of the examples is the citywide free Wi-Fi. We know that free Wi-Fi is a necessity today. It's not a privilege. So we just give it freely to everybody. You can just use it freely on the streets. This is the way we launched our free Wi-Fi a few years ago. It was a rather hot day, so we just put some shades with umbrella, and it was also a really good picture for the papers the next day. And the third T he talked about is tolerance. So as I said, in Tel Aviv we have a variety of populations. We have a very big gay community living alongside with Arabs, with Jewish, with straight people, and everybody have their place and living very, very well together. This is how we promoted our gay parade. We just painted the crossroads around the city. So Tel Aviv has today 800 startups working in Tel Aviv. That's an amazing number because we only have 400,000 residents in Tel Aviv. It means that you have one startup on every 500 citizens. It's the largest number per capita in the world. We're very proud of it. And we're investing a lot of development budget that goes up every year in these technologies and development of the city. So I want to give you a few examples of what are we doing to make the city what it is. We talked about the free Wi-Fi around the city. We are working on a startup visa to make it easier for entrepreneurs from all over the world to come to Tel Aviv and work and create. We want to reduce city taxes for those local small businesses that comes to work in Tel Aviv. We also have a big event every year. We call it the Open Startup, and we invite everybody to just go around our startups that's working all over the city and share information and come and learn and see what they're doing. One of the most amazing things that the municipality is doing is providing places for young entrepreneurs to work freely. So we took an old library at the center of the city and just gave it to young entrepreneurs to work. So we provide everything they need freely. We give them computer, coffee place, free Wi-Fi, convention room, whatever they need to create, and we give them the space to do it. They can come, work together, share their information, and create wonderful things together. So we have over 100 entrepreneurs working in this space, 45 teams. It's a great opportunity for them to meet other people doing the same, working in the same areas. Another great project that we have is city making. The municipality understands that we need to use our technologies to give power to the people to decide how they want the city to look like. So what you see here is the city building, the city hall building, with a duck sitting on it. We are going to neighborhoods, asking people, we're giving them the technological platforms and asking them how they want their neighborhood to look like. So maybe they want to see a duck sitting on their building. We never would have thought about it. I don't know, it's weird, but maybe that's what people want. We ask them where they want the trees, how they want the benches to look, if they need more shade, if they need more open spaces. We say, okay, we have $2 million. We are going to invest it in your neighborhood. Just tell us what you want, and we are going to do it. So we are using the technology to give the power to the people, to the residents of Tel Aviv. And they have much better ideas than we do. So we just use their knowledge and the creativity. So Tel Aviv went through a few phases. The first one was using the technology and the data for the government management. So we used all the technology for managing the city. Then we took this knowledge and decided to give it back to the citizens. So we use all the data we have and we just open it. We talked about open data here a lot, so Tel Aviv also did it, and we gave chance to young entrepreneurs to use that data and make great applications with it. We also have the iView. It's a map GIS with a few layers with a lot of information about the city. We opened our archives, and we have a great city app to give specific information about everything around you, around the city. And I want to show you a small film, short film, to describe our very new project we're very proud of. It was launched just last year. We call it Digitel, Tel Aviv Club. So I'll just show you a short film to describe what we're doing.
Welcome to Tel Aviv, Israel's energetic and youthful heartbeat. A coastal metropolitan that never sleeps. A city deserving of the next step in municipal services and communication. Digital. A personalized, interest, and location-based digital communication network centered on our residents. Every Tel Aviv resident from the age of 13 can visit one of our many registration points. Tell us a bit about themselves. And that's it. Then they will receive a digital city card and become Digitel citizens. Based on their unique digital profile, we can offer them customized information and remote services, anytime, anywhere. We'll make sure Simon gets an SMS that the bridge on his route is closed, so he can take an alternative route and get to his game on time. We'll remind Sarah that the time for kindergarten registration is about to end, and even help her register on the go. And Jonathan loves music, so we'll offer him discounted tickets to tonight's neighborhood concerts. Digitel is even bigger than that. It keeps us connected with our residents at all times, using an urban multi-layered map network, citywide free Wi-Fi, public participation platforms, and a city mobile app offering users nearby services, even enabling them to report hazards directly. We will know exactly where the hazard is by their location. It's a revolution, placing the citizens at the heart of the city and creating an entirely new dialogue with them. Digitel, a new kind of urban experience.
So that was another example of how we use our digital platforms for the citizens. We also use our public buildings for the citizens. For example, we open the City Hall after the working hours every Thursday and make it a big jamboree. So all the mothers with the children, or fathers, of course, can come play at our building. Everything is free, of course. Oh, didn't mean to do that. And the next step is working harder to connect the community together. So not only using the data from the government to the citizens, but making the connection between the citizens stronger, citizen to citizen. So we are working on sharing economy. We want to develop a city coin. And we have some great applications and ideas that we are already working in Tel Aviv. So we have the WeWork building. It's actually, it came from America, but it is an Israeli idea. It's an open co-working space that people rent a space, a table, and they get a chance also to work with other people doing the same things and sharing information. We have Eat With, and it's a great application inviting people to eat in your own living room. So if I make wonderful pasta and you don't have anything to do tonight, so you can find me and you feel like eating pasta, come to my living room. We'll probably have a great connection, great conversation, and get to know each other. So we'll use this platform just to make stronger connections between the community. And I want to finish with inviting you to a Great City Summit we have on September. We call it Cracking the Innovation Code. People coming from all over the world to talk about smart cities solutions. So if you're interested, you are more than invited to come and visit Tel Aviv. Thank you.
Okay, so we heard from cities and we heard from the speakers. Now we're going to get into next step of team presentations. we have actually close to 20 teams, if I remember correctly. It's going to be a exciting next few hours. So format we're going to be the same. I'm going to have the presenters down here, and we're going to go one by one. Since we're a little bit behind right now, so somebody's going to time, and we really need to adhere to this 5 minutes line, and we're going to give you a sign if it is obviously more than 5 minutes. So please come to the podium, Julian Goldman, and the PA 2040, either Ken or Mamta, and Dan Hoffman from Scale, Emmanuel from Smart Sockets, and Brenda from Ecosystems for Smart Medical Simulation, and one more, Bridget from Pango. And actually, we have a speaker who has to leave soon, so we're going to put him before everybody else because of flight schedule. That's Paul Doherty, and he's going to speak about his project.
Good morning and welcome to Friday the 13th. My name is Paul Doherty and I'm an architect, not a software architect, a real one. And I represent an organization called the DigiGroup. We are a technology company that designs applications for smart cities, but we're also building and designing smart cities around the world. One example I want to show that puts into context what our action cluster is about actually started with the Department of Commerce, where last March we were selected as one of 21 different American innovation companies to join Secretary Pritzker with the Department of Commerce on a trade mission to the Middle East based on infrastructure. During that particular trade mission, we were introduced to a project that is the world's tallest building, 1 kilometer tall outside of Jeddah on the west coast of Saudi Arabia. What transpired over the past, I'd say about 6 months or so, is that we are the master architects and the builders for the entire city. This city is truly a smart city because our design motif is designed around everything that we've seen here over the past day and a half, technology. In the same way that elevators changed the entire way that we thought of cities by allowing us to have high-rise buildings, so are the types of technologies and solutions that we're seeing today, especially with what we see in Europe. So thank you very much for showing those very inspiring. The reason why we're here, and I'd like to thank Soku for introducing himself in Barcelona to me, where we met. And he thought it was very interesting because we have a series of smart city solutions that are based on open standards and also open source code. We actually deliver a lot of our technologies through a web browser, not a plugin, not an executable file, but literally through a web browser. And what we're doing with this particular project in Saudi Arabia is actually implementing things from the ground up so that it's actually built into the walls, floors, and ceilings of our structures, even into the light poles and into the roads themselves. This particular city will have a self-driving system as the major mass transportation system, as well as the world's largest urban rooftop farm, so that it is self-sufficient for all produce. This particular city, though, has a lot of pragmatic technologies that are being implemented today, and one of those actually came out of here in the United States, and that's what this action cluster is all about. So I definitely would like to have a lot of feedback on this after this particular session about what this really means. So we partnered up with an organization called the Kansas City, Missouri Fire Department, led by a gentleman who's the deputy fire chief. His name is James Garrett. And what we've done is that we've taken our technology from the idea of just having it as a really cool software solution to save lives, but actually integrating it into the fabric of the infrastructure in and around Kansas City. They are the first city to be a gig fiber network by Google, which means that a lot of the technology and connectivity is actually built into the infrastructure itself, such as every home has a gig fiber connection, as well as the streetlights, which are gig Wi-Fi hotspots. Now, what this does does two big things within our application. One is that we're able to take a lot of data from the municipality and mash it up on a per occurrence basis. 911 call comes in. It's a single family home that has a kitchen fire, smoke-filled condition, and I'm missing my kid. Now, usually what happens is the fire truck goes out there and people are putting on their uniforms and whatnot, and then they have to make an assessment when they get to the fire itself. What we do is that we actually pull information from the building department, from the water department for things like the sensors of what the water pressure is by the local fire hydrant, to understanding was there an MSDS sheet for hazmat permits. What more information can I get? It's a lot more than what they're getting right now, but the really cool part about this is that we actually have a near-frequency thread that is put into the name tag on the jacket of that particular firefighter. Now he has a unique ID. This performs the number one goal of what we're trying to do here, which is we have a geofence now that surrounds that particular that particular home. Then what happens is, the way that it happens today is that you have an incident reporting sheet on a clipboard and a pencil, and people get the time and date stamp of when those firefighters are going into the fire. And then, most importantly, they look around to find out who came out. That's a big, big problem. So now what we've done is that we've automated that, because with the geofence around this particular property, the minute that the firefighter goes in with that near-frequency tag, automatically uploads into the cloud and then pushes it back out to an iPad version of the incident reporting sheet, time and date stamped, both in and out. That alone saves lives, and that's what we're looking for help. We actually do have this into a test bed. We're working with many different types of technologies. We're actually looking at Bluetooth now as an alternative, and of course, how do you then track the firefighter as he goes into the home? Well, this is the next step, and in phase 2, we actually want to take the augmented reality of what it means to be inside that fire when you can't see. Because this is what you see, you're blind. And what we're looking to do is not use the Google Glass thing that came out in the media about a year ago. That doesn't work because the glass would melt on your face. What we are looking to do is actually take the visor technology and actually augment that particular situation with enough information so that it's a guidance system within the home itself. So this is our action cluster. This is where we'd like to be. We do have a series of next steps, including what's going to be announced a week from Monday, that we are part of a five company challenge in the UK, backed by the UK government, called Cognicity at Canary Wharf. We'd like to have a lot of different types of ideas, because this is a global issue. Firefighting is not just about the US, but the US innovation being exported out is really, really interesting. So we're kicking this off in a major way so that we can meet the June deadline of actually having this functional. The next step also, and where we'd like to be, is in Chicago. We run a series of nonprofit events called the AEC Hackathon. Started out at Facebook headquarters. We're now moving forward in pushing this out to the United States and actually into Europe in September. AEC stands for Architecture, Engineering, Construction, so we really do focus in on the built environment. So we look forward to hearing from you. We do need a lot of help when it comes to the connectivity piece, and anyone that's involved with first responders. This type of information sharing is not about making money, it's about saving lives. And on behalf of my son, thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Now, next speaker is Dr. Julian Goldman. He has been working with us, meaning from the Smart America Days to Google Team Challenge, for almost day one. So he probably has a lot to talk about, but I can give you only 5 minutes. Sorry about that, just like anybody else. So here is, I think, your slide, and please welcome Dr. Goldman.
Hi. All right, I'm starting my timer here. There we go. 25 minutes, that's plenty. So first of all, thank you. This is really exciting to see how things have culminated, starting really back with Smart America and now the Global Cities Challenge. As I'm showing you on the slide, I'm going to go through a little bit of the history and then how we ended up where we are today. So we're calling what we're doing now end-to-end pandemic care. So E2E pandemic care, and you'll see how we got there. And we have some hand signs and letter. We'll go through that, hashtag, and so on. So we started off in September in 2014 with the initial Global Cities Team Challenge, and we arrived with our action cluster at the idea of remotely caring for our most vulnerable citizens in place during a pandemic. So the idea started to emerge that we could improve the management of people who might have to be in quarantine or isolation environments. For example, maybe someone living in a building was visited by someone with influenza or with Ebola virus, and now we have to start to assess all of those folks living in the building to see whether they are coming down with illness. So how could we use sensor networks in smarter ways? How could we monitor remotely? What type of innovative sensors could be integrated in an Internet of Things at the point of care for early diagnosis and remote triage and support for those vulnerable citizens? So the proposed project scope back then was to work on automated aspects of detection, triage, and treatment in the face of pandemic of infectious disease and address the things that I mentioned. And of course, we had the drone that delivers the sensors directly to the home, as we talked about previously. Well, fast forwarding just a little bit to October, November of this year, we were asked if we could start to look at better care for Ebola patients specifically. And so that initiated this project of open medical device and data integration platforms to support the management of Ebola care. And what was the idea there? Well, over a 20-day period, multiple organizations came together to apply some of the things that I just mentioned. So better quarantine monitoring, better use of sensors, but then adding another notion of better care for patients in the hospital, in the ICU. Because why should you enter an ICU to adjust a ventilator or adjust an infusion pump or make other adjustments to equipment at the patient's bedside if you could simply not enter the room at all and remotely control medical devices, something that isn't possible today with medical devices because of the complexity and the risk and all the things that have been discussed here about assurances and security and so forth for an Internet of Things. So in November, we demonstrated at our medical device plug-and-play lab at Mass General Hospital that exactly what we just discussed, remote control of devices and so forth. And I'm going to show you a news clip. I'm going to try and show you a news clip. We're going to look for the news clip, which was on the screen before, but we'll just open it again. And that means that there's going to be an ad that plays before we start. We went through the ad earlier, bypassed it.
I want you to deal with your...
It's the way it is. Let's see. Is that playing? Well, that's frozen. Oh.
Problems
Okay.
by becoming rich.
Here we go.
That's the ad. I'd love to say that's what we did, but it isn't. Okay. Here's what we did.
Think about this. If a TV can have a remote control, why not a medical device? The White House challenged companies nationwide to come up with high-tech ways to improve the country's ability to treat Ebola patients safely.
And new at 6 tonight, News Center 5's Kelly Tuthill got a sneak peek in Cambridge ahead of a presentation tomorrow in Washington, D.C. Take a look.
Imagine sending a robot into an Ebola patient's room, minimizing the number of healthcare workers exposed to the deadly virus.
When we need more supplies in the patient's room, we can put the supplies on a robot like this.
This is one of many innovative medical devices on display in Cambridge. Companies from across the country asked to collaborate and present their ideas to the federal government on Friday.
Unfortunately, I would say, it sometimes takes something as significant and concerning as Ebola or other catastrophe to bring people together. How are you feeling?
The technology includes devices that take a temperature remotely, a ventilator controlled by a laptop, and a biopatch that records vital signs on what's called a patient storm tracker for early Ebola detection.
Is it low cost or is this an expensive?
Very low cost. It's been developed in the last 10 years with the military, so they have it in their uniforms now.
One of the high-tech tools here is a camera that's actually measuring my pulse, my respiration rate, even my temperature.
Some of these prototypes could be available to U.S. hospitals as soon as 30 to 60 days.
Because there aren't many hospitals today that are accepting Ebola patients. Okay, so fast forwarding from there and trying to get the computer to cooperate with me, it looks like we have a PowerPoint issue, so, okay. So we finished that Ebola demonstration in November, and following that, now we've come back here, come together again for the next Global Cities Challenge meeting, and what we've done is we've built on that. Is this it? So we've built on that. I have to admit that I've never had to do so much slide dancing before. Where are we? Where's our slideshow? Thank you. There we go. Okay. Okay, so what we did is we started down that direction. We worked our way down the Ebola pathway. We don't want people rushing into patients' rooms. We want to have remote access, remote data roll-ups to protect healthcare workers and protect the patients by responding more quickly in that setting. Even controlling infusion pumps. If you run tubing from outside a room into a room, it could take 20 minutes before a drug reaches the patient's arm versus remotely controlling that pump right at the patient's bedside. And how about using robots to deliver, as we talked about, with UV radiation through like a doggy door as they go in and out. So we came together in a 3-day hackathon based upon the concepts that we developed in Smart America, which was very helpful. We just built on that same approach. And then we ended up using our OpenIce platform, which is available publicly and open, and also a commercialized version of that from a company called DocBox. And those are the collaborators, 20 collaborators, including federal agencies, the FDA, the U.S. Illness Injury Consortium, and the IIC. And then these arrows, I won't go through this, there's no time, but depict the data flow between the different companies in an open way, and then the analytics engine that analyzed all that data. This is a letter from the FDA. They were present on site showing their support for this work, because that is necessary if we're going to see innovation from medical device companies. They must be at the table. So we're very pleased to see that. And now this is the last slide, which shows that now we've converged, and whereas we initially talked about pandemics, we talked about Ebola, but Ebola was very 2014, but 2015, we're going to talk about measles for obvious reasons. But either way, the notion stays true. It's end-to-end pandemic care, applying those same areas, end-to-end because it's from triage initially and detection all the way to care of the patient in the hospital, in the ICU, to improve patient care. And there's our hashtag E2E_pandemic care. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Julian. Sorry for a little bit of hiccups in the AV and PowerPoint. Hopefully, we're back on track. So, yeah, there's a lot of things that's blocking. So, next project is PA 2040. It's going to be all three of you. Wow. So we have 3 presenters. All right. So, okay, we'll try. So we are updating the PowerPoint. Let me see. Is that, okay. Can you just play it from here? All right.
So good morning, everyone. My name is Ken Walton, and we are the Pennsylvania Avenue 2040 team. We have 3 presenters today. Myself, Ted Jutras from the Golden Triangle BID, and Mamta Sudhakumar from the DC Chief Technology Office. When we kicked off last September, we were going to look at the West Smart Lights on the east end of Pennsylvania Avenue between 15th Street and 3rd Street. But we quickly found out when we got back to the office, pulling all those people together and making it work was going to be difficult. And so we shifted over to the west end of Pennsylvania Avenue. And luckily for us, the Golden Triangle BID had a sister project that was going on at the same time that was going to be able to solve the problem for us. And so they stepped in and helped us out. We still are looking at some of the same issues we talked about in September. One of the major issues that we have is operations and maintenance. When you look at Pennsylvania Avenue, most people see the image like you see down there to the left, a grand boulevard, very beautiful. But what we see when we look at it is these images, which are a street that hadn't been repaired and maintained very well over the last 30 years. And so we're hoping to create a smart solution for operations and maintenance. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Ted Jutras. He's going to talk a little bit more about what's going on in the Golden Triangle.
Thanks, Ken. So, as Ken mentioned, when we got pulled into this project, the Golden Triangle Business Improvement District had just undertaken a visioning project for Pennsylvania Avenue from the White House to basically George Washington University. This is a really busy, diverse part of the city. You have tourists, you have international institutions, embassies, private sector, a lot of people in the area, but no one actually uses Pennsylvania Avenue. So this is the current conditions today. After September 11th, Pennsylvania Avenue in front of the White House got permanently closed off, so it's no longer a throughway through the city. So as a business improvement district, our job is to try to make the neighborhood as active, vibrant, bustling as possible. We want tourists to come, shop, dine. We want workers to eat their lunch, buy suit and shoes, stay for happy hours, and we want businesses to want to locate in the neighborhood because it's the place to be. So the challenge was how to get from here to here. And this is the visioning plan from a urban design standpoint. And before Ken approached us about the project, we were approaching it strictly from an urban design perspective. Doesn't mean we weren't being innovative. I think there are a lot of things we were doing in terms of sustainability. You see the rain gardens, low impact development. One of the first truly dedicated, separated cycle tracks to try to balance the modes of transportation better. But what the NIST project did was open up a new world of possibilities for us in terms of how we can build on that urban design approach and use Internet of Things to be able to plan the community better going forward, improve maintenance issues, and also to really help users of the neighborhood to make it a truly exciting, interactive place to be, especially for those who are already in the neighborhood, and also to make it truly a global destination and a grand urban boulevard. And I'll let Mamta discuss the actual technologies behind how we're going to make that happen.
So I'm part of the district's Office of the CTO, or OCTO for short. OCTO owns and operates an extensive and robust fiber infrastructure in the district. To support the PA 2040 vision, we see supporting them by creating a smart and connected corridor on Pennsylvania Avenue. So we see us extending this fiber infrastructure to the streetlights. We envision creating a smart lighting platform along the corridor. This smart lighting platform will enable us to capture real-time data and analytics related to events, related to the environment, and send it back to the cloud. Now, applications using this data not only to solve the parking issues and public safety issues, but future transportation needs. So our goal here is to create a model for IoT platform in the city to support not just current applications, but any future applications from smart grid to telematics. So not only is the IoT platform one of the features of the project, but also we envision extending free and secure Wi-Fi services to enhance the visitor experience in the corridor. The network already supports all the public safety, health, and education services in the city, so we envision extending all those services along that corridor to improve operations. As you can see with the complex projects such as this, several stakeholders are involved, not just at the local government, the city level, but also federal agencies, the business improvement districts, the universities. So we're very excited about the project. We're currently in the solution design phase, working with our technology partners. We really want to thank NIST and US Ignite in bringing together a diverse group such as ours, which I wouldn't think would have been possible without this platform, to really create this exciting opportunity in the heart of the nation. Thank you.
So, okay, we need this file at some point to upload. Thank you very much. And next speaker is going to be Scale. Well, not speaker is a Scale, the project is Scale. And speaker is going to be Dan Hoffman. If you guys were at the reception last night, and you've probably seen him already, Dan Hoffman.
Thank you very much. I will be brief. I think a lot of you have seen our. We're at the reception last night. Thank you for coming. If you were there, we are the Scale project. We've been involved since the Smart America days. We're now into Scale 2. We're stepping it up, and we are looking at not just atmospheres, but healthy air, water, and people. So we're including a lot of medical and water infrastructure sensing as well. We now have a new co-working lab space for the team and for any Global City team that is interested, called the Thingstitute, which is where we had the reception last night. We have a lot of great teams. I'm not going to go through the 15 to 20 teams. You've seen them there, including Mass General, who you saw earlier. One of the things that we now have and that we're featuring, or we're proud to announce, is that we have a partnership with another great American city, Kansas City. So the mayor of Kansas City, Mayor Sly James, and the county executive, who you may have heard yesterday, have entered into a partnership. We are looking to add more partners, more collaborators, to share information on complementary projects such as ours. We have a couple other cities we're talking to. We're looking for international cities as well to complement the large companies, the small companies, the international companies that are part of our team. One of the interesting things about our project is that we're planning to fully participate in the June festivals as part of the Global Cities Team Challenge. We're planning an 18-month trajectory with major milestones this June, December of this year, and June of 16. So we want to set up an extended test bed for our project. The home of our project, as I mentioned, is Scale. It's an old courthouse, which many of you saw last night. It's the staging area, and really it's the hub for all of our test beds. Our first test bed is a large senior living facility, just a couple of blocks away from the Thingstitute. This is where we will have our real world test bed volunteers, where we will deploy our devices. We are currently in the process of developing those use cases, expanding on what we did in Scale 1, and looking for partners and different opportunities. Our intent is to take interested folks, policymakers, investors, companies, residents, really through a day in the life of what could be at a facility like this. It's a subsidized independent senior living facility, and really take it back up from the technical level a little bit, and really show the general population what is possible to start building education and awareness around the possibility for these devices. So this is the big picture, and I won't go through all of the little bits of it. As you've heard throughout the last day and a half, there are many, everyone's interested in an open, interoperable platform from which to build the Internet of Things. Across the bottom, there's all kinds of different, as the Chief Innovation Officer for a government, I'm not interested in one particular technology. I'm not interested in one particular vendor. I'm interested in a very diverse ecosystem of devices with diverse forms of connectivity. And what we're really focusing on is that top layer, the applications and benefits. We want to talk about how in a diverse ecosystem, in a county, in a city, in a building that has devices across the spectrum, literally and figuratively, how we can build applications that provide better information to firefighters and fire trucks, to police officers, to people picking up trash, to transit. And we see this healthy air, healthy water, healthy people test bed just being the first test bed. We're also looking at an agricultural test bed. Montgomery County is home to over 100,000 acres set aside for agricultural use that is underused right now. We are looking at transit test beds. As a major urban county just outside the District of Columbia, we have significant congestion and traffic issues, but also in terms of emergency response, we're looking at really developing a living, breathing transit system through our new Bus Rapid Transit initiative, which is over 90 miles of bus rapid transit. We want to be able to establish a test bed where we could understand what it means to create a transit system that could be transformed almost at a moment's notice for evacuation purposes, to meet demand, and corrections. Corrections is a major source of expense for us, and it's also very underserved currently by technology. So this is our test bed. We are starting off with healthy air, healthy water, healthy people, and we look forward to briefing you guys in the future and having you at more events. Our timeline is we've launched the Thingstitute, our lab space is open, we are developing our use cases and our storyline now. We will be soliciting volunteers from that senior living facility. At that point, we're going to be building, procuring devices to the appropriate residents. We plan on fully participating in June, and as I mentioned, we will have additional phases 3 and 4. We have a mandate from the county executive to carry this on for as long as is feasible and develop as many test beds as needed. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Dan. This was a great example of how a small project initially became a lot bigger than a small project. So now next speaker is Emmanuel Azzi about the indoor emergency response locators. There you go. Use the arrow.
All right, good morning, everyone. My name is Emmanuel Azzi, and I'm with Smarter Socket. And we are building wall sockets that are able to transmit location information to first responders. So what I'm going to do right now is just really sort of dive into the problem. If you were to dial 911 from where you're sitting, first responders would find it very difficult to figure out exactly where you are. The main problem there just being that GPS doesn't really work inside buildings. So if you're in a basement or on the 7th floor or the 8th floor, it's really hard to determine exactly where you are. And in life or death situations, that type of information is really important. For example, I took the screenshot when I was on the 8th floor of a building across the street, but as you can see there, my phone thinks I'm actually in the street. So if I were to dial 911, this is the type of location they would get, but they definitely wouldn't get like the vertical layer. They wouldn't know exactly what building I'm in or what floor I'm actually on as well. Very recently, as of I think February 2nd, the FCC passed new regulation to require the carriers to provide more accurate location information. We were fortunate to be cited in that order to use technology like ours to provide first responders with more accurate information. And what exactly does that mean? Well, the gold standard is a dispatchable address, and a dispatchable address is an address that maybe a 5-year-old would understand. It's you know, an XY and a floor and a room, and that sort of is the gold standard. The order itself required the carriers to provide either of these options, one either being a longitude or latitude with an accuracy of about 50 meters, or the preferable solution would be a dispatchable address. Now, to put this in context, if you were to, I guess, order pizza today, and you called Papa John's or anybody else, and you said, "Hey, I want a pizza to, you know, longitude negative 77.21," you probably get hung up on, right? Because no one ever communicates in that way. But that's just sort of the location information that we provide first responders today. Our solution is to integrate Bluetooth Low Energy technology and Wi-Fi into wall sockets that can be installed in virtually any building, and create an accessible database or API accessible database such that when someone dials 911, that information can be easily relayed to the PSAP, on the PSAP levels, or to any other location provider. Our test bed is to effectively deploy the technology in the university. We're working with the University of Missouri on an STTR proposal to deploy this technology in multi-level buildings on campus and develop an accessible API of locations. And there are a number of reasons we think this is important, because obviously I think safety is the most important reason, but then there are also additional benefits like wayfinding, traffic, and energy, just because you can sort of start to direct an HVAC system based on the natural occupancy of a room rather than timing or any other metric. So in terms of hardware development, we are completed our prototypes today. Our software works fairly well, and we are entering manufacturing fairly soon. And as I mentioned, we were collaborating with 2 universities, actually Howard University as well, here in DC. So one of the main problems, I think, is deployment, is why anyone would try to or attempt to replace the wall sockets that exist today. So there is a commercial aspect to it. So we're working with several groups here in DC to come up with commercial use cases that would allow or enable premise owners to deploy the technology as part of their infrastructure. So thank you for the opportunity.
All right, thank you very much. Next speaker will be from George Mason University, Brenda, from Ecosystem for Smart Medical Simulation Team Training. By the way, there are two more speakers before we actually three more speakers after Brenda. So Katie Olson and David Larry, please be prepared to give a talk before the break.
Good morning. I am Brenda Bannon from George Mason University. I'm joined by my colleagues, Dr. Shane Gallagher from the Advanced Distributed Learning CoLab and Shelley Blake Plock from Yet Analytics out of Baltimore, Maryland. We are the Ecosystem for Smart Medical Team Simulation Training Challenge Team. We are a fairly new challenge team. I attended the kickoff in September here at NIST, and I was very inspired by some of the work you've just seen, Dr. Goldman's particularly, and Dan Thomas's work, and the other interesting projects that are going on here, that I got so excited I went back to Fairfax County and started talking it up and wondering what we could do. And it was kind of a perfect storm of opportunity and players and some existing partnerships and some new partnerships that helped to form this team. We had an association with Inova Fairfax Hospital. They had just opened their new state-of-the-art surgical simulation lab in July, and it is for training medical residents in surgical techniques as well as existing surgical team training. It's a state-of-the-art facility that was refitted into a basement of their hospital, and we began postulating with them even before we knew about this challenge about what we could do related to improving medical training. We also was associated with Fairfax County Fire and Rescue Department through the Aztec facility, and they were planning a multi-team simulation training activity before we even came on board. In the meantime, Shane and I have had an association at Mason and brought in Shelley, who had some analytics perspectives, and we're still in conversation with Verizon. We hope to hear from them soon, but we have the capability to run the project with or without them. The Center for Cybersecurity Innovation joined us yesterday. We're thrilled to have them to think about some privacy issues related to this, and we have teams of graduate students we're involving from the University of Maryland, from George Mason, as well as any others in the area that might be interested in joining us. So with a nod to our European colleagues, we've recently seen how preparedness and response and learning from action, how important that is in a city-based emergency. We want to come at this looking at high-fidelity simulation training, which the military employs, as well as emergency response, as well as medical contexts. This intervention is an extremely complex intervention, both to run as well as to assess and evaluate. As a matter of fact, in educational research, we really don't have good models in how to evaluate and assess team-based learning, team-based training, or collaborative learning. I'm going to skip ahead. We want to improve real-time tracking of activity and experience during these high-fidelity multi-team simulations. We think we can provide benefit for improving their performance and hopefully link to improving patient care. We want to do this in a highly complex multi-team real-world simulation where there would be an active shooter type of a context in Fairfax City, and we would track that activity from that point where it happened all the way through hospital transport to pre-hospital experiences, being admitted into the ER, all the way through a simulated surgical context to post-op. The things we want to look at there, literature talks about time being extremely important, situational awareness, coordination of team and individual actions, as well as stress. The way it's assessed currently is more paper-based or limited technological interventions. These are photos of the actual Aztec simulation context, and we want to know what we can learn by leveraging IoT technologies to improve observational research in those contexts and learning and performance. We also want to key in on the debrief, which has been shown in research to be the place where the most learning occurs. So we want to provide enhanced information, analytics in that scenario. And I'll turn it over to Dr. Gallagher.
So what are we going to do? Very quickly, we want to embed a network of cyber-physical or IoT cyber-physical system within medical simulation and training. We want to capture data from each phase of the life cycle, from first responders through transport, through the trauma bay, to recovery. We want to capture that data. We want to pop it up to the cloud in a learning record store called an LRS. And that's basically the overview. And how are we going to do that? We're going to do it using an interoperable specification developed or led, with development led by Advanced Distributed Learning in the Department of Defense, called Experience API, which captures experiential data in an I did this format, actor, verb, activity. And it can capture that event data from almost any device in context of the activity. And how you define what those activities and verbs are domain dependent. So in this case, we're scoping tightly to the particular scenarios and the medical team training that we previously described. You can capture that data, and you can then, from almost any sensor or phone or what have you, the LRS is also a component, we worked in tandem, that can be localized or be in the cloud, that you transport that to. So this is an interoperable specification. Now, ADL has traditionally had experience with standards and specifications, and at this point, the IEEE is getting ready to initiate a PAR, where it moves into a potential standard. So they're driving that, and we don't know what the time frame will be, but we have a feeling that it'll happen, and then eventually it might even go up to the what was I thinking about? Anyway, other specs bodies and standards bodies. It escaped me the one I was talking about. However, with that in mind, I'm going to move on, and we're going to drive down a little deeper so that we can get to how we're going to do that. And Shelley, I'm going to give it over to you.
Come see us.
I hate to cut you guys off, but it's just that we are really running behind right now, so we really need to fit our time. So next speaker, we're going to be Bridget LaFemina from Pennsylvania Globe Gaslight Corporation.
Good morning and happy Friday, everyone. My name is Bridget LaFemina, and I'm with Penn Globe. Our nation watched on December 14, 2012, as details unfolded about the shooting at Sandy Hook Elementary School in Newtown, Connecticut. When 20 young children and 6 teachers lose their lives in a tragedy such as this, the initial response is one of unfathomable sadness and shock. For some of us in Connecticut, however, it became a mission, that mission being to reduce the odds of this ever happening again. We began with the idea to introduce security cameras within street lighting fixtures. In a short time, we put together a team of inspired local partners to create the autonomous notification and data collection system. Using the existing real estate of energy-efficient decorative street lighting poles and fixtures as our baseline, our team has added state-of-the-art technology that has the potential to make a difference in safety and security measures in communities all across the globe. Our team collectively subscribes to the It Takes a Village approach to deliver a promising solution to pedestrian safety. Important partnerships have been forged, and exceptional collaboration has produced an outstanding prototype for smart city lighting and security. And we have a video for you to watch.
Across the country, in all municipalities, the area under the trees is difficult to monitor effectively. Hardwired surveillance cameras mounted on buildings provide some information, but in the end, it is limited. Most times, these cameras record the top of a person's head, and while that is useful, it is incomplete information. Hardwired gunshot sensors mounted on buildings are limited in the same way. They typically identify an area of concern, but not immediate, specific information. Street lighting is a given necessity of any streetscape, and the real estate it represents is virtually unused. Using the available real estate in the light fixtures and poles under the tree line, our team proposes to deliver state-of-the-art technology to meet a series of critical needs. The posts are designed to provide data collection vital to a community's needs. The street lighting posts are capable of receiving and delivering information to law enforcement. In the event of a shooting, a gunshot sensor detects from where the sound occurs and immediately alerts the authorities over a wireless network. Simultaneously, the camera directs focus to the area from where the sound came and coverage of the event begins. The end goal of the Autonomous Notification Data Collection System is to reduce response times, deter crime, and protect communities of all kinds. Because the streetlight posts are at the pedestrian level, quality facial recognition is delivered in real time, and no time is wasted in response to the event. The luminaries also have 360-degree point-tilt zoom surveillance cameras discreetly mounted at the top of the fixture. Nothing unsightly is protruding from the design, and at a typical mounting height of 14 feet, the cameras are almost non-detectable to the pedestrian population. The overall design blends into the pedestrian landscape. Street lighting is a well-thought-out component of economic development. The pedestrian walkways must present themselves as welcoming, inviting, and in character with the downtown area. The lighting optics are high-performance, energy-efficient LED platforms. Most cities can expect to reduce their energy costs by at least 1/3 and their maintenance costs in half. Color temperature ranges will be available to meet high security, contemporary, or historic concerns. The optical platforms can be DLC listed, enabling municipalities to receive selected refunds from their local utilities. Lastly, the streetlight assembly is manufactured as a pre-wired unit for easy installation for the municipal customer. Their surveillance data collection components are cost-contained.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Wilson Stonier. I'm also with Penn Globe. For our test bed for this Global Cities Team Challenge project, we are going to be working with the town of North Branford, Connecticut, which is actually right in our own backyard. We're working with the mayor, the town manager, and the chief of police to secure the area around the Stanley T. Williams Center in that town. They use that location as administrative offices. There's a community center, daycare center, and senior center. So there's a lot of comings and goings there. We'll be actually securing this area with a full 360-degree camera system with a gunshot sensor, which will autonomously monitor, detect, collect, and transmit that vital information directly to the police department in case of any incidents. And we are working in the future to not only with gunshot sensors and the like, to incorporate with our teams, such as with our partners, Connecticut Innovations, Queralt is here as well, to incorporate not only just safety and security methods, but also for precipitation sensors, blue light alerts, and programmable LED displays to also allow municipalities and even just general end users other avenues to increase financial gains and just increase the efficiency of their departments. So we want to thank you very much, and if anybody has any suggestions or ideas, we'd love to listen to you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. I think we are seeing a lot of more videos today. Is it good or is it bad? So next speaker, move on to next one, is Katie Olson from UI Labs. Katie, all right. Okay.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Katie Olson. Oops. Let's see. There we go. I am with UI Labs. So for those of you who are familiar with the NNMI program, the National Network for Manufacturing Innovation, we are the recipient of the third grant. So we received $70 million from the Department of Defense back about a year ago to create the Digital Manufacturing and Design Innovation Lab. So we're currently exploring what another program, a second program beyond the digital lab could look like. And so we're doing some early exploratory work in Chicago with Argonne National Laboratory, the University of Chicago, and a few other partners. So today what I'm here to talk about is this collaboration with Dr. Charlie Catlett at Argonne National Laboratory. We are looking at a particular program called Instrumenting the City. So our first project is to improve the spatial resolution of weather and air quality data in Chicago. So this is quite similar, I think, to the project that we heard about yesterday in Portland. So one of the, what we're trying to do is, currently in Chicago, there is a sort of, given the sparsely populated air quality sensors that we currently have in Chicago, we don't necessarily know why some neighborhoods have greater incidences of asthma and why we can't, it's very difficult to develop policies as well related to traffic and emissions. So what we're trying to do with better spatial and temporal data, we could create traffic management schemes or route pedestrians with automated with asthma and sort of different routes. So as part of the City of Chicago's technology plan, the City, Argonne, and the University of Chicago will deploy hundreds of sensors that are network sensors and computing nodes throughout the city in 2015. And this project is called the Array of Things. So several are currently being tested at the university to evaluate these nodes for performance and resilience during our harsh Chicago winters to see how they'll stand up. And the current prototype can measure temperature, humidity, barometric pressure. It has an accelerometer, as well as sound and light intensity. Future prototypes that we think will come out this year will add infrared, wind, precipitation, and particulate matter. So the AOT team, as with others, is working with Big Belly to think about how to integrate the sensor into their waste stations as one of many different potential deployment sites. Here we go. So what we'd like to be able to do is with a just going to flip. I don't think their images are showing up quite as planned here. But what we'd like to be able to do is create a composite metric that at a high resolution for air quality, we could create new policies. So in the future, AOT data could be, I think we're missing a few slides here. Apologies for that. But basically, in addition to being able to inform some of our policies, we'd also like to be able to incorporate some of the data that's being collected by the Array of Things nodes and being able to integrate it with personal health devices. So you can imagine someone reading on their Fitbit, not just how much exercise they've added up, but as well, what the sort of air quality is and help in the current state, and to think about how that might change some of their decisions for that day, whether it's a route or what have you. So that's what the prototype looks like right now. And again, we're working with Big Belly to roll it out in the city. And just a couple of questions that we typically get. The sensor data is uploaded every 30 seconds. The data will be free and accessible to anyone. And both the hardware and software will be open source. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to either myself or Dr. Catlett.
Okay, it sounds like a lot of people are interested in air quality, which is a great thing. I want to live with a fine and great air. Next project is also related to air quality from Chattanooga. David Larry from University of Texas. He's going to talk about a project called GASP, which is very proper name. PDF. Okay. Sure, and I'm going to put in the full screen.
So it's good to see you all. I know I'm the last talk before lunch, so I will try and be expeditious. So I appreciate the previous talks that gave a context for the air quality. So ours follows on that theme and gets a little bit more specific. So Chattanooga is a place that is obviously known as a gig city, but also it's one of the highest incidents of asthma in the country. And actually Chattanooga is not alone in that. There's about 50 million Americans with either asthma or rhinitis, and every day about 46,000 work days are missed because of this. So if we could have timely alerts on a personal level for what the air quality is on a very fine spatial scale, that could be transformational. So personal decisions could be made that could impact, for example, it could be the difference between an ER visit and a normal day. So this project actually is a collaboration between several people. What we've done at UT Dallas for a very long time, bringing together massive amounts of data from the entire planet to give a daily air quality product. But that context has been at a resolution of 10 kilometers. So when you look at the planetary scale, that's very fine, but when you look at the person scale, that's rather coarse. So now we want to take it up a notch to have a full suite of air quality sensors and PM2.5 and pollen. So pollen are larger particles, which are not conventionally measured. They're normally measured by a very laborious, labor-intensive case where you collect the air sample strips where the pollen is collected on, and you use a microscope to count the individual ones. So we want to fully automate that using these laser-based sensors like you can see in the left. So this is a collaboration also with the University of Tulsa, who has a long history in the aerobiology and that part of it, and then several people in Chattanooga, EPB, that will have the network, obviously, and the Enterprise Center and the Public Library. And we were brought together by US Ignite. So it was a really great experience to get to know these folks through that. And the goal would be not only to deploy it in Chattanooga, but then hopefully to deploy it at multiple other places across the country, because this is not an isolated issue we're talking about. And just to underline that point, the World Health Organization less than a year ago released a report that said in 2012, 7 million people died globally because of air quality. Now, a significant amount of that is actually associated with these particulates we just mentioned, but it's not all outdoor. It could also be indoor. So we've already developed a prototype package that continuously streams these 6 different gases, the particulates and the pollen. And many of the cheap sensors actually are not such good quality, so we've tried to take it up a notch so that the data will actually be of a more reliable nature if this is replicated across the country and beyond. So when you see statistics like that, the 44,000 people have an asthma attack every day in the US, 36,000 children miss school, it kind of brings it home that this is a really important issue. But that issue is not just for the health impacts. We constantly make measurements in Richardson in Texas, and we also fly on aerial vehicles making these particulate measurements. And these 2 pictures on the left and the right are of our remote control plane coming in that records these aerosols. But the difference between these 2 is the airborne particulates. So on the left, the rather clear looking day, above it you see a distribution of the concentrations, and they're color-coded, so according to the EPA scale. So green is good air quality, and the yellow and orange is getting not such good air quality and hazardous for health. So you see on the day where we have good air quality, we have a really clear day, and on the right where we have the poor air quality, which impacts our health, it also impacts the visibility. So this is really a very tangible and practical project. And we also go around the streets making these measurements to get a feel for the local spatial variability. So this is color-coded. Blue is low amounts of particulates. Red is high. This is with a really accurate in situ instrument. And you see when cars stop at some traffic lights near an intersection, there's a local spike. You'll see these localized red dots. So that's where a smart city where the traffic flow is more optimized can not only have benefits for your experience of driving through the city, they can have considerable benefits for the air quality. So you could also imagine with autonomous vehicles optimizing for air quality. And so this is our global product that I already have and do on a daily basis, which is at 10 kilometers, but now we'd like to take it to the next level and have a neighborhood scale air quality, as some of the previous people have also mentioned. So it would be great if NSF is able to support us for this, because then we could have a validation campaign, and we'd love to replicate this across many cities. So if you're interested, I'd love to chat with you. Thank you.
Thank you.